Settle into a place of stillness as this gentle lecture begins. Allow your breath to move in its natural rhythm, unhurried, unforced, as though each inhale is drawn in from a quiet night breeze, and each exhale releases the tension of the day. As you listen, there is no need to focus sharply or to hold tightly to each word. Instead, let the sound of the narration wash over you in the same way moonlight falls across the surface of water, soft, constant, and serene. Tonight we will explore the human senses, those remarkable gateways through which the world enters into the mind and body. This is not a study filled with urgency or demand, but a slow unfolding, a dreamlike wandering through the anatomy of perception. The senses are our constant companions. They greet us in the moment of waking, and they remain with us even as we drift into sleep. Sight meets the rising sun. Hearing attends to the murmur of voices or the call of birds. Touch reminds us of the weight of blankets against the skin. Smell captures the fragrance of morning air, and taste lingers in the first sip of water or tea. Beyond these five, other senses wait quietly beneath awareness. The sense of balance, keeping us steady, the sense of body position guiding each motion without thought, and the subtle inner sense of hunger, thirst, or heartbeat, reminding us of the living processes within. These are the hidden senses, often unnamed in ordinary speech, yet no less vital than the rest. When philosophers of the ancient world first spoke of the senses, they described only the five most obvious. To them, the human being was a creature primarily of eyes, ears, tongue, nose, and skin, and for many centuries this idea remained unchanged. A simple framework repeated from teacher to student, from parent to child. But as science grew more detailed, it revealed that human perception is far richer than these five alone. Today, we understand that the senses are not only separate channels but also overlapping fields of experience, working together, blending and merging in ways that create the vivid fullness of life. Consider how vision is not merely the detection of light, but the interpretation of colors, the recognition of shapes, the awareness of movement. Consider how hearing is not merely the reception of vibration, but the transformation of air into music, into language, into silence that still holds presence. Consider how taste is not only sweet, sour, salty, bitter, and umami, but also the integration of aroma, texture, and temperature into a complete impression. Even touch, which seems so simple, is in truth a network of sensations, ranging from the lightest brush of fabric against the skin to the deep pressure of a resting hand, from the comfort of warmth to the alertness of cold. The senses, then, are the body's conversation with the world, are not perfect instruments, nor are they neutral. They shape, they select, and they emphasize. The brain does not passively record what the senses receive, but actively weaves those fragments into patterns, memories, and meaning. In this way, perception is always more than raw data. It is interpretation. A quiet story the brain tells itself about what is happening beyond the boundaries of skin and bone. And so, the reality each person experiences is both shared and deeply personal, a blend of physical input and inner construction. Think of a smell that reminds you of childhood, perhaps the fragrance of wood smoke, or the scent of rain on warm earth, or the aroma of bread baking in an oven. The molecules that carried that smell are simple chemicals, drifting invisibly through air. Yet the moment they reach the nose, they stir the nervous system into recognition, and the brain, without hesitation, attaches memory and emotion. In this way, the senses are not only biological functions but also emotional keys, unlocking chambers of the past and stirring feelings that words cannot fully capture. Even as you rest here, the senses continue their work without asking for effort. The weight of the body is felt against the surface beneath it. The ear still hears faint sounds, the hum of air, perhaps the distant movement of water or the quiet of the room. The skin notices the air against it, whether cool or warm. Even the darkness behind the eyelids is itself a form of vision, a field of perception softened by the absence of light, and through it all, the steady rhythm of breath continues, each inhalation carrying with it the subtle awareness of scent and temperature, each exhalation a gentle release. This lecture begins, then, not as a lesson to be studied, but as an invitation to wander slowly through these gateways of experience. There will be time to reflect on each sense in turn, to linger with sight and hearing, to pause with touch and taste, to drift with smell and balance, and finally to rest with those quiet senses that keep the body aware of itself. The path will not be hurried. Each step will be taken with care, as though moving through a shaded garden in twilight, where every leaf and stone may be noticed, but none demands attention. Perception itself is a kind of twilight. It stands between the outer world and the inner mind, neither wholly one nor the other, but a blending of both. Just as dusk softens the line between day and night, perception softens the line between the external and the internal. It is a place where light becomes vision, vibration becomes sound, and air itself becomes the memory of places once known. This is why the senses are such powerful companions for rest. They remind us that we are always connected, always immersed in a flow of gentle information that requires no striving, no resistance. As we continue, keep in mind that there is no need to remember everything said. The mind may wander, thoughts may drift, drowsiness may arrive quietly. This is not a loss, but rather the natural way of learning and relaxation. Just as water nourishes soil even when the roots lie hidden, so too does gentle knowledge settle in the mind even when the listener drifts into sleep. If the senses are the gateways to experience, then sleep is the wide field into which those gateways open, a place where perception continues, but in softer, dreamlike forms. And so, the lecture begins with this soft welcome, an easing into awareness of the body's extraordinary gift of perception. With each breath, with each word, with each moment of quiet reflection, you are carried gently inward, where the senses and the mind rest together. This is the starting point of our exploration, calm, unhurried, and filled with the promise of drifting deeper into both knowledge and rest. 2. What are the senses? The senses are often introduced to us in childhood as a simple list of 5: sight, hearing, taste, smell, and touch. These 5 have become a kind of cultural shorthand for the way humans interact with the world. They are easy to remember, easy to picture, and they do indeed represent some of the most immediate and noticeable ways in which we gather information from our surroundings. But the truth, as is often the case with the body, is more subtle and more expansive. The senses are not 5 fixed windows, but rather a network of channels, some familiar, some hidden, and all quietly working together to create the experience of being alive. Imagine for a moment that you are sitting in a quiet room. The eyes may be closed, or perhaps open just enough to notice shapes and shadows. Sight is present, taking in what little light enters the space. Hearing is awake, attuned to the faint hum of distant movement or the sound of your own breathing. Touch is there too, registering the fabric beneath your fingertips, the pressure of the body against the surface on which you rest, the gentle pull of gravity itself. Even without food or drink, taste lingers, for the tongue always carries a faint echo of flavors past, and smell is active, picking up the subtle qualities of the air, whether cool, warm, or scented. Already, in this stillness, the 5 classical senses are alive, present, and inseparable from the moment. Yet beyond them, other senses are quietly woven in. Consider balance, the ability to remain upright, to walk without stumbling, to tilt the head without confusion. This sense arises from the vestibular system of the inner ear, where delicate canals filled with fluid respond to motion and gravity. Without it, the world would tilt and sway unpredictably, and the simple act of standing would feel uncertain. Then there is proprioception, the awareness of the body's position in space. Even with eyes closed, one knows whether the arm is lifted or resting, whether the legs are crossed or extended. This knowledge comes not from sight or touch, but from receptors deep within muscles and joints, a constant internal map of where we are. Another hidden companion is interoception, the sense of the body's internal condition. This is what allows hunger to be felt, thirst to be noticed, or the fullness of the stomach after a meal to be recognized. It is what signals the need to breathe more deeply after exertion, and what allows the heartbeat to be sensed during moments of calm or excitement. Interoception is not always in the foreground of awareness, but it is always there, guiding choices, protecting balance, and ensuring survival. Some researchers suggest that humans have even more subtle senses beyond these, depending on how finely one defines them. There is the ability to feel pain, distinct from ordinary touch, mediated by specialized nerve endings. There is thermoception, the perception of warmth and cold, which helps us seek comfort and avoid harm. There is the awareness of time, not through a clock but through the brain's own rhythms, an internal sense that measures the flow of moments. Some even argue for magnetoreception, the faint sensitivity to Earth's magnetic fields, a trait well established in migratory animals but less understood in humans. The question of how many senses humans truly possess does not have a single, universally accepted answer. Some scientists hold to the classical 5 for simplicity, while others count 9, 10, or even more, depending on the criteria. But whether 5 or 15, the important point is that the senses are not separate compartments. They overlap, cooperate, and blend. The taste of food, for example, is shaped not only by the tongue but by the nose, the texture detected by touch, and even the temperature sensed by thermoreceptors. A single meal becomes a symphony of senses playing together, each instrument distinct but inseparable from the whole. The way these senses work together reveals something deeper. Perception is not just about detection, but about interpretation. Two people may taste the same fruit, yet describe it differently. One may find it sweet and pleasant, another tart and unappealing. The molecules on the tongue are the same, but the brain's interpretation is shaped by memory, expectation, and even mood. The same is true of sound, where one person may hear a note as calming and another as piercing. The senses gather information, but the brain colors it, shapes it, and blends it with the fabric of experience. This is why the senses are so closely tied to individuality. They remind us that perception is not a mirror of reality, but a construction of it. Each person inhabits a slightly different sensory world, shaped by the biology of the body and the history of the mind. For some, colors appear vivid. For others, muted. For some, scents are strong and abundant. For others, faint or even absent. Hearing may be sharp, catching every detail, or softened, filtering the world into gentler tones. These differences do not diminish perception but enrich it, ensuring that no two people live exactly the same version of the world. The senses also change over time. In childhood, they are often acute, filled with novelty and immediacy. Every taste is new, every sound a discovery, every touch an exploration. With age, they soften, not only through natural changes in the body but also through familiarity. Scents that once stood out may fade into the background. Flavors may seem less sharp. Hearing may lose its ability to catch the highest tones, and vision may shift in clarity. Yet even as these senses change, they continue to connect the individual to the world, adapting, adjusting, and persisting as long as life endures. To reflect on the senses, then, is to reflect on the nature of being itself. They are the means by which the world enters into us and by which we, in turn, enter into the world. They remind us of our place within a larger whole, connected to light, air, sound, and substance. They reveal that experience is not static but dynamic, shaped by countless interactions between body and environment, between stimulus and interpretation, between outer reality and inner awareness. As you rest here, perhaps noticing the rhythm of your own breathing, or the sensation of your body against the surface that supports it, you are experiencing the senses not as abstract concepts, but as living presences. They are with you in every moment, guiding you quietly, shaping your awareness, and coloring your perception. The lecture will move on to explore each of them more deeply, but for now it is enough simply to recognize their presence, to appreciate their subtlety, and to let that recognition bring a sense of calm. The senses are not only instruments of survival, but also companions of rest. They allow us to savor the comfort of stillness, to notice the quiet around us, to feel the softness of the present moment. And so we begin this journey by expanding beyond the familiar five, acknowledging the richness of perception, and preparing to drift more deeply into the detailed world of sight, sound, touch, taste, and smell, beyond, into the hidden senses that complete the tapestry of awareness. 3. The nervous system as interpreter. At the heart of all perception lies the nervous system, a vast and intricate network that receives the signals of the senses, shapes them, and transforms them into the living experience of the world. Without this system, the eyes might still gather light, the ears might still receive vibrations, and the skin might still detect pressure. But these signals would remain silent, unformed, without meaning. The nervous system is the interpreter, the gentle translator between the outer world of stimulus and the inner world of perception. It is both messenger and storyteller, carrying fragments of sensation into the mind and weaving them into the continuous fabric of awareness. Imagine for a moment the path of light entering the eye. It strikes the retina, where specialized cells respond to brightness and color. These cells, tiny yet precise, convert light into electrical impulses, but the eye alone does not see. The impulse travels along the optic nerve, carried inward toward the brain. There, within the cerebral cortex, the signal is deciphered, compared, and assembled into the image you perceive. In much the same way, sound begins as vibration in the air, setting into motion the delicate structures of the inner ear. These movements are converted into neural signals and delivered to the auditory cortex, where they become tones, words, or music. Each sense has its own pathway, but all converge upon the nervous system, which patiently interprets them and brings them into being. The architecture of this system is astonishing in both scale and detail. At its center rests the brain and spinal cord, together known as the central nervous system. From this central hub, countless nerves branch outward, reaching to every corner of the body, forming the peripheral nervous system. Within this vast network are billions of neurons, the specialized cells that transmit information. Each neuron can form connections with thousands of others, creating an intricate web through which messages travel. These connections are not fixed but dynamic, strengthening with use, softening with disuse, and shifting over time. This adaptability allows the nervous system not only to receive signals but also to learn, to change, and to refine perception. Every sensation begins with a receptor, a specialized structure tuned to detect a particular kind of stimulus. Some respond to light, others to vibration, others to chemical molecules, or to the stretching of skin. When activated, they generate an electrical signal, a tiny pulse that flows along the neuron. This signal is not continuous but arrives in discrete bursts, like notes played on an instrument. The frequency and pattern of these bursts carry the information forward. At the junction between neurons, called the synapse, the signal is passed along with the help of neurotransmitters. delicate chemical messengers that bridge the gap. In this way, sensation travels step by step, cell by cell, until it reaches the brain. But the brain does not simply passively record these signals. It interprets them, organizes them, and often fills in gaps. Consider vision. The eyes receive a stream of changing light, yet the brain smooths this into stable images. Consider hearing. Sound arrives in waves, yet the brain isolates words from background noise, even predicting what comes next in a sentence. Consider touch. A hand may rest against a surface, and though thousands of receptors are activated, the brain merges them into the simple impression of contact. In this way, perception is both a reflection of the outer world and a creation of the inner one. One of the remarkable abilities of the nervous system is integration. The senses do not operate in isolation but continually interact. The smell of food enhances its taste. The sight of movement sharpens the perception of sound. Even balance and vision are linked, with the eyes helping to stabilize the sense of orientation. The nervous system accomplishes this blending with ease, allowing the world to appear seamless. Were the senses to remain separate, experience would be fragmented, a collection of unconnected impressions. Instead, the nervous system ensures that they join into a coherent whole, a single, unfolding reality. The speed at which this system operates is both silent and astonishing. Nerve impulses can travel at hundreds of kilometers per hour, allowing the body to respond instantly to changes. A sudden sound may cause you to turn your head before you are even aware of hearing it. A sharp touch may cause the hand to withdraw before pain is consciously felt. These reflexes demonstrate the efficiency of the system, its ability to act swiftly to protect the body, while the conscious mind lags just behind. And yet, for all its speed and precision, the nervous system is not rigid. It is shaped by experience, constantly adjusting its patterns. Pathways that are used frequently become more efficient, while those neglected may fade. This plasticity ensures that perception evolves with life itself. Musicians may find their hearing sharpened to subtle differences in tone. Painters may notice shades of color invisible to others. Even in everyday life, the nervous system tunes itself to what matters most, amplifying certain signals and softening others, sculpting awareness to suit the needs of the moment. This adaptability extends even into memory and imagination. The nervous system does not distinguish sharply between a sensation perceived and one remembered. To think of a fragrance is to activate the regions of the brain that respond to smell. To picture a landscape is to stir the visual cortex, as though the eyes were truly seeing it. In this way, the nervous system allows perception to reach beyond the present, carrying traces of the past and anticipations of the future, blending them softly into the experience of now. Even in rest, the nervous system does not sleep entirely. As you drift into slumber, the senses quiet, but they do not vanish. The ears still listen faintly, the skin still feels, the body still responds to temperature and position. Dreams themselves are shaped by the nervous system, which continues to weave signals, memories, and fragments of imagination into the tapestry of inner experience. In this way, perception never ceases, but flows onward, adapting to the rhythms of wakefulness and sleep alike. To reflect on the nervous system is to reflect on the profound subtlety of being alive. It is not merely a set of wires transmitting signals, but a living interpreter, one that shapes reality moment by moment. Without it, the senses would remain silent. With it, light becomes color, vibration becomes sound, and the touch of the world becomes the gentle awareness of presence. It is the quiet storyteller behind every experience, the patient guide that carries us through each day and night, ensuring that perception is not a confusion of fragments, but a continuous unfolding journey. 4. The sense of sight. Among the many senses that guide human experience, sight is often considered the most dominant, for it fills our waking hours with detail, shape, and color. The eyes are the instruments of this sense, But vision is not contained in the eyes alone. It is a process that begins with light, passes through delicate structures, and ends in the vast interpretive capacity of the brain. To understand sight is to understand a story of transformation, where waves of energy traveling from the sun or from a lamp are converted into a landscape of images, a world that feels immediate, familiar, and real. The eye itself is a small sphere, just over 2 centimeters across, yet within its curved walls lies an intricate design shaped by millions of years of evolution. Light first encounters the cornea, the transparent outer surface that bends and focuses rays toward the inner structures. From there, it travels through the aqueous humor, a clear fluid that maintains pressure and nourishes tissues. The iris, colored ring of muscle that gives each person unique eyes, opens and closes to adjust the amount of light allowed inside, narrowing in brightness and widening in dimness. At the center of the iris is the pupil, dark, not because it is colored, but because it is an opening, a gateway through which light enters. Beyond the pupil lies the lens, a flexible and transparent structure capable of changing shape. With each adjustment, the lens bends light more or less sharply, allowing the eye to focus on objects near or far. This process, called accommodation, happens without conscious effort. Whether one reads the fine print of a page or gazes at the distant horizon, the lens shifts smoothly to maintain clarity. Behind the lens is the vitreous humor, a gel-like substance that fills the eye's interior, giving it shape and stability. At last, light reaches the retina, the innermost layer of the eye, a sheet of tissue lined with millions of photoreceptor cells. Here, the transformation truly begins. Photoreceptors come in 2 main types: rods, which are highly sensitive and function best in dim light, and cones, which provide color vision and detail in brighter conditions. The rods, numbering over 100 million, enable night vision, though without color. The cones, fewer in number but concentrated at the center of the retina, provide the sharpness and hues that fill daytime experience. When light strikes a photoreceptor, it triggers a chemical change within molecules called photopigments. This change alters the electrical state of the cell, generating signals that pass to neighboring neurons. These signals converge, are processed and refined by several layers of retinal cells, and then leave the eye along the optic nerve. Remarkably, the retina is not a passive sheet, but an active processor, already simplifying and organizing information before it even leaves the eye. The optic nerves from each eye meet at the optic chiasm, where fibers cross so that signals from the right visual field travel to the left hemisphere of the brain, and signals from the left visual field travel to the right hemisphere. From there, the information moves through the optic tracts to the thalamus, and finally to the visual cortex at the back of the brain. It is here that the journey of light ends and the experience of sight begins. But the brain does more than simply display the world. It interprets. It fills gaps where information is missing, smooths movements into continuous lines, and merges the input of both eyes into a single image. When we see, we are not passively recording reality but actively constructing it. Consider the blind spot, the area of the retina where the optic nerve exits and where no photoreceptors exist. In this place, light cannot be detected at all, yet we do not notice a hole in our vision. The brain fills it in with surrounding detail, creating the impression of an unbroken field. Color perception is another example of the brain's interpretive role. Cones come in 3 varieties, each tuned to a range of wavelengths corresponding roughly to red, green, and blue. By comparing the activity of these cones, the brain constructs the vast palette of color experienced in daily life. The green of leaves, the blue of sky, the red of a flame, all are products of this comparison, not of the light itself. And when certain cones are absent or altered, as in color blindness, the experience of the world shifts, proving again that sight is a creation as much as a reception. Depth perception arises in a similar way. Each eye receives a slightly different image of the world, separated by the distance between them. The brain compares these images and calculates distance, allowing us to judge how far away an object lies. At the same time, perspective, motion, and shading all contribute to the sense of space. In this way, the flat images on the retinas are transformed into a three-dimensional landscape in which we may move, reach, and explore. The importance of sight is reflected in its influence on other senses. When sound is paired with vision, it becomes easier to locate and identify. When taste is combined with the appearance of food, flavor is enhanced. Even balance depends on vision, for closing the eyes while standing makes it harder to remain steady. The eyes are not separate instruments but part of a larger harmony of perception, yet sight also adapts. When light fades, the pupils widen, the rods take over, and the world becomes shades of gray. When brightness returns, the cones awaken, colors return, and sharpness is restored. This adaptation allows humans to see in a wide range of conditions, from the faint glow of starlight to the glare of midday sun. The process is gradual, but steady, always working to maintain awareness of the world. To sit quietly and close the eyes is to notice sight in its absence. Darkness spreads, but even then the visual system is not entirely silent. Shapes and flickers may appear, remnants of activity within the retina or the brain. These phosphenes, as they are called, remind us that vision is not only external but also internal, a continuous play between light and mind. The sense of sight, then, is both delicate and powerful. It allows us to read the smallest letter and to gaze across vast distances. It enables recognition of faces, of places, of subtle changes in expression or in light. It guides movement, shapes memory, and colors imagination. Without it, the world is different, yet even in darkness, other senses rise to fill the space, proving that vision is only one thread in the larger tapestry of perception. As we move forward in this gentle lecture, let sight rest where it is. If your eyes are closed, they may remain so. If they are open, they may soften. There is no need to strain or to hold on to detail. The eyes, like the other senses, are always working, always interpreting, always weaving the world into experience. And with this awareness, we may now drift onward, deeper into the world of perception, toward the next of the senses that shapes the quiet story of being alive. 5. Color, light, and visual harmony. When we think of vision, we often imagine not only shapes and outlines but the gentle presence of color, the way hues spread across the world like paint upon a canvas. Light itself holds no color. It is made of waves of varying lengths, each too subtle for the mind to perceive directly. What the eye and brain do together is transform these differences into experience, assigning shades and tones to the invisible variations of energy. In this way, color is not a property of objects but a creation of perception, a harmony woven from the meeting of light, biology, and awareness. The journey begins with sunlight, a broad spectrum of wavelengths streaming across space to the earth. White to our eyes, sunlight in truth contains the full rainbow, from the long waves of red to the short waves of violet. When this light encounters an object, some wavelengths are absorbed and others reflected. A leaf, for example, absorbs most wavelengths, but reflects those in the green range, and so, to us, it appears green. A ripe fruit reflects more of the red, and so its color seems to glow warmly in contrast to the surrounding foliage. But the leaf and the fruit themselves are not truly colored. They are only surfaces interacting with light. The sensation of color arises only when reflected waves enter the eye, strike the photoreceptors, and are transformed into signals that the brain interprets as hue. Inside the retina, cones are responsible for this transformation. Each cone contains photopigments tuned to particular ranges of wavelength. One variety responds most strongly to shorter wavelengths, another to middle, and a third to longer. The brain does not rely on any single cone but compares the activity of all three, creating from their differences the vast richness of color. From just these three inputs comes the blue of sky, the gold of sunlight, the subtle gradations of pink at dawn or orange at dusk. Even the endless variety of greens in a forest can be traced back to the interplay of these receptors, their overlapping responses forming harmony after harmony. Brightness is another part of this experience. Rods, the receptors more sensitive in dim conditions, do not distinguish color but detect light and shadow. When night falls, cones withdraw and rods take over, leaving the world in shades of gray. This is why stars appear bright but colorless, and why moonlight lends the earth a silvery tone. When dawn comes, cones awaken again, and color returns, reminding us that what we perceive is not fixed, but shifts with the rhythm of light. Contrast, too, is essential. The brain enhances differences, allowing edges to stand out clearly. A pale shape appears brighter against a dark background, darker against a bright one. Shadows sharpen forms, giving them depth. Without contrast, the world would be flat and vague. With it, vision becomes dynamic, full of structure and clarity. The nervous system, always interpreting, ensures that color and light are not only seen but experienced as meaningful patterns. Harmony arises when these elements blend smoothly. Consider the gentle transitions of a sunset, red fading into orange, orange into gold, gold into violet. No sharp lines divide them, yet the eye perceives each change, savoring the gradient as a continuous unfolding. Nature often arranges colors in this way, not as sudden opposites but as soft sequences, and the mind finds them soothing. In art, too, harmony is sought. Painters layer hues not to mimic reality exactly, but to evoke the feeling of light, the warmth of day, or the cool quiet of evening. What they are truly painting is perception itself, tapping into the brain's natural response to color. Even in the absence of light, the brain continues to play with color. Close the eyes after gazing at a bright shape, and an afterimage lingers, a ghost of the color inverted upon the darkness. This happens because the photoreceptors temporarily tire, their balance shifting, and the brain, ever interpreting, fills the silence with the opposite hue. Such phenomena remind us again that vision is not a mirror but an active construction, one that continues even when the external world is gone. Color also carries emotion. Warm tones often feel inviting, cool tones calming. A soft blue may suggest peace, a deep red vitality, a pale green renewal. These associations are not universal, but they are common, for the nervous system ties perception closely to memory and mood. Just as a fragrance may awaken an old recollection, so too may a color stir feelings, not through logic, but through the quiet pathways of the brain. Light itself is rhythm. Daylight changes in quality as the sun rises and falls, shifting from the cool, pale tones of dawn to the golden warmth of noon, then into the long shadows and muted hues of dusk. The body responds to these changes, guided by circadian rhythms that link the presence of light to the cycles of wakefulness and rest. The blue of morning light signals alertness. The dim red of evening invites calm. In this way, vision is not only about seeing the world, but also about living in harmony with its natural rhythms. In stillness, light can be noticed in its gentlest forms. The flicker of a candle, the shimmering reflection on water, the soft glow of the moon, each is a reminder that vision does not require brilliance to be meaningful. Even the faintest light carries enough information to guide, to soothe, to connect us with the environment. And when darkness falls completely, sight does not vanish, but instead shifts into imagination, where the mind supplies what the eyes cannot. Thus, color, light, and harmony together form one of the most tender aspects of human perception. They remind us that vision is not simply detection but creation, a blending of external energy and internal awareness. Every hue, every brightness, every shadow is part of a greater whole, a world made vivid by the dialogue between light and the nervous system. To see is not only to observe but to participate in this dialogue, to receive the rhythms of day and night, and to let them shape both perception and feeling. As we move onward, let the eyes rest where they are, open or closed, in light or in shadow. Vision will continue its quiet work, interpreting, adjusting, and harmonizing. And while it does, the gentle journey will turn now toward another sense, one that does not depend on light at all, but on vibration and sound, guiding us deeper into the soft symphony of perception. 6. The world of sound. If vision is the story of light, then hearing is the story of vibration. The world is never truly silent, though the sounds around us may shift in tone, in volume, in rhythm. The sense of hearing allows us to dwell within this invisible landscape, to notice the faintest rustle of leaves, the flowing of water, the distant call of a bird, or the quiet rise and fall of our own breath. Sound does not fill space in the way that light illuminates it, yet it surrounds us just as completely, arriving not in straight lines but as waves, moving outward in all directions from their source, carrying with them the signature of every event that created them. At its heart, hearing begins with motion. When an object vibrates, it disturbs the air around it, compressing and stretching it in waves. These waves travel outward, expanding across space until they reach the ear. The human ear is exquisitely shaped to capture and guide these waves, channeling them inward so that what began as motion in the air can be transformed into the experience of sound. The outer ear, with its familiar curves and folds, is not only a structure of appearance but of function. Its shape helps collect sound and direct it into the ear canal, amplifying certain frequencies and allowing us to discern the direction from which a sound has come. At the end of the canal rests the eardrum, a thin membrane that responds to air pressure by vibrating in sympathy with it. Each wave of compression and release causes the eardrum to move, faithfully tracing the pattern of the sound. Beyond the eardrum lies the middle ear, a chamber containing 3 of the smallest bones in the human body, the malleus, the incus, and the stapes, known also as the hammer, anvil, and stirrup. These tiny bones form a delicate chain, transferring and amplifying the vibration from the eardrum to the inner ear. Despite their size, their role is profound, for without them much of the energy of sound would be lost in the transition from air to fluid. The inner ear contains the cochlea, a spiral-shaped structure filled with liquid. Along its coiled interior lies the basilar membrane, lined with thousands of tiny hair cells, each sensitive to particular frequencies. When vibration passes into the cochlea, the fluid moves, bending these hair cells in precise patterns. Low tones stir one part of the spiral, while high tones stir another. Each bent hair cell generates a small electrical signal, which travels along the auditory nerve to the brain. From this orchestra of signals, the brain reconstructs the full richness of sound, the pitch, the loudness, the timbre, and the rhythm. But hearing is not only detection, it is interpretation. The brain does not merely present sound as vibration, but transforms it into meaning. The rhythmic variation of air pressure becomes the melody of music, the inflection of a voice, or the whisper of wind. Words emerge from patterns, tones become emotion, silence itself takes on presence. Just as the eyes create color from light, the ears create tone from vibration, and the nervous system weaves these tones into the fabric of perception. The range of human hearing is broad, from about 20 cycles per second, which we perceive as deep, rumbling bass, to 20,000 cycles per second, which we perceive as delicate, high-pitched tones. Yet this range is only a fragment of what exists. Other creatures hear frequencies far beyond ours. Whales communicate in infrasonic calls that travel across oceans, while bats and dolphins navigate with ultrasonic echoes too high for us to perceive. Still, within the range available, human hearing is sensitive and adaptable, capable of noticing both the thunder of a storm and the faint crackle of fire. One of the most subtle aspects of hearing is its ability to locate sound. Because the ears are set apart on either side of the head, a sound will reach one ear slightly sooner and with slightly different intensity than the other. The brain compares these tiny differences and from them calculates direction. In this way, hearing provides not only awareness of sound but orientation in space. Without vision, a listener can still turn toward a speaker, follow the approach of footsteps, or sense the nearness of flowing water. Like vision, hearing is deeply connected to memory and emotion. A melody heard once may linger for a lifetime. The tone of a voice can carry comfort or unease. The sound of rain can evoke calmness. The crash of waves, vitality. Hearing is not limited to the present, but links past and present, for the nervous system ties each vibration to recollection, making sound a powerful bridge between moments. Even in silence, the ears do not rest entirely. The auditory system is always alert, scanning the environment for change. In sleep, the body may seem unaware, yet sudden sounds can stir it awake. This vigilance is a quiet guardian, ensuring safety even when consciousness withdraws. Silence itself becomes a kind of sound, a background against which every faint noise is noticed. In meditation or in rest, one may become aware of the hum of the body, the subtle ringing within the ears, a reminder that hearing never truly ceases. Adaptation is another feature of this sense. When exposed to constant noise, the auditory system learns to ignore it, allowing more important sounds to emerge. In a city, the constant hum of traffic may fade into the background, while in the countryside, the chirping of insects becomes part of the stillness. The brain filters and prioritizes, shaping not only what is heard but what is attended to. Music is perhaps the most striking example of sound transformed into beauty. Rhythm, melody, and harmony are all patterns of vibration, yet through the ear and brain they become expressions of emotion and imagination. A single instrument can evoke joy, sorrow, or peace, not through words but through the language of tone. In this way, hearing is not only functional but also artistic, a sense that brings depth to human culture and personal reflection alike. As you listen now, perhaps noticing the quiet around you, or the sound of these words as they reach your awareness, remember that every tone is carried by air, shaped by the ear, and interpreted by the mind. The sense of hearing is not only a gateway to language and music, but also a companion to rest, attuned to both the presence of sound and the calm of silence. With hearing gently considered, the journey will turn next toward another subtle sense, one not of sound but of balance, guiding us in stillness and in motion alike. 7. Balance and orientation. While sight and hearing often draw the most attention, there is another sense that quietly works in the background, so constant and reliable that it can be easy to forget it exists at all. This is the sense of balance, the subtle awareness that allows us to remain upright, to walk without stumbling, to turn the head without confusion, and to move through the world with steadiness. Without it, even the simplest actions would become uncertain. With it, the body feels grounded, supported, and aligned with its surroundings. Balance is not only about standing tall, but about orientation in space, a deep sense of position that keeps life moving smoothly. The source of this ability lies within the inner ear, in a system known as the vestibular apparatus. Nestled beside the cochlea, which governs hearing, are 3 semicircular canals and 2 small chambers called the utricle and saccule. These structures are filled with fluid and lined with delicate sensory cells, each tipped with fine hair-like extensions. As the head moves, the fluid shifts within the canals, bending the tiny hairs and generating signals that travel along the vestibular nerve to the brain. The semicircular canals are arranged at right angles to one another, aligned with the three dimensions of space, so that together they detect rotation in any direction forward and back, side to side, and twisting movements. The utricle and saccule, on the other hand, detect linear motion and the pull of gravity. Within them lie tiny crystals of calcium carbonate, called otoliths, that rest upon the hair cells. When the head tilts or when the body accelerates, these crystals shift, tugging at the hairs beneath them. From this movement, the brain receives information about position and orientation. Together, the canals and the chambers form a complete system, capable of tracking every nuance of motion. But balance is not maintained by the inner ear alone. The brain integrates vestibular input with information from vision and proprioception, the sense of body position. When you walk across uneven ground, your eyes note the surface, your muscles and joints report their tension, and your vestibular system signals any shifts of the head. From these three sources, the brain constructs a clear picture of where the body is in space and how it should adjust to remain steady. When one source is absent or unreliable, the others compensate. Closing the eyes makes balance more difficult, but proprioception and the inner ear continue their work. When the inner ear falters, vision may become more important. It is this integration that makes balance so resilient, yet also explains why its loss can feel so disorienting. Dizziness is the sensation that occurs when balance signals conflict. If the inner ear reports motion but the eyes see stillness, or if the eyes move rapidly while the vestibular system is at rest, the brain struggles to reconcile the difference. The result is vertigo, the unsettling feeling of spinning or falling. This reveals how finely tuned the balance system is, and how deeply it is woven into perception. Even a small disturbance can ripple through awareness, reminding us of how essential balance is to the feeling of stability in the world. Balance is not only mechanical but also deeply tied to rhythm and motion. When walking, the body naturally sways, and the vestibular system ensures each step is corrected before imbalance occurs. When dancing, the inner ear guides the turns and spins, allowing the body to remain oriented despite rapid movement. Even when sitting still, the vestibular system is quietly active, confirming that the body is upright, that the head is level, that gravity continues to pull in its constant direction. In this way, balance is not a rare sensation, but a continuous one, ever present and indispensable. The importance of this sense extends even into the development of movement in childhood. Infants, learning to crawl and walk, rely on the vestibular system to align their bodies with the ground. Games that involve spinning or rocking stimulate this sense, strengthening its signals and helping the nervous system refine its coordination. Later in life, balance remains essential, guiding athletes in precise motions, supporting the elderly in steadiness, and accompanying every person in the ordinary act of rising, walking, and turning. Balance also influences the quieter aspects of experience. Consider the way posture affects feeling. To sit upright is not only a physical act, but one that can alter mood and attention. To recline is to shift into rest. These changes are sensed not only by muscles and joints, but by the vestibular system, which notices each tilt and each angle, signaling the brain to adjust both body and awareness. In this way, orientation shapes more than movement. It shapes the sense of self in space. Even in sleep, balance continues its watchful presence. Though the body lies still, the vestibular system remains active, guiding shifts of position, helping the sleeper turn without falling. Dreams themselves sometimes draw upon this sense, weaving sensations of floating, falling, or spinning into their imagery. Such dreams remind us that orientation is not only physical but also deeply tied to consciousness, blending the inner ear's signals with imagination. The sense of balance is, in essence, the quiet guardian of motion. It does not call attention to itself in the way sight dazzles or sound resonates, but it underlies all movement with steadiness. It allows us to trust our steps, to close our eyes without fear of tumbling, to move through the world with grace and confidence. Its presence is most often noticed when it falters, but in truth, it is always there, silent and reliable, shaping every moment of life. As we reflect upon this hidden sense, let the thought of stability settle into your own body. Notice the way you are supported, the gentle pull of gravity anchoring you, the steadiness of your position. In this awareness, balance becomes not only a physical sense but a symbol of calm, a reminder that even in stillness, the body is oriented, guided, and at rest. From this place of quiet grounding, the journey will move next to another sense, one that connects us to the surface of the world in the most immediate way, the sense of touch. 8. The sense of touch. Of all the senses, touch may be the most constant. From the moment of birth, when the skin first feels the air and the warmth of another's arms, to the final stages of life, when comfort often comes in the form of a gentle hand, touch remains a steady companion. Unlike vision or hearing, which may close with darkness or silence, touch is always present. The skin is the body's largest organ, wrapping us in a continuous field of sensation, a living boundary between inner self and outer world. The surface of the skin appears simple, but beneath it lies a landscape of receptors, each tuned to different kinds of contact. Some respond to the lightest brush, others to pressure, still others to vibration or to temperature. These receptors send signals along nerves that travel through the spinal cord and into the brain, where they are interpreted into the familiar textures of daily life. In this way, touch is not one sensation, but many a tapestry woven from countless threads, each carrying information about the world outside and the state of the body itself. Consider the sensation of pressure. When an object rests against the skin, receptors deep in the tissue detect the distortion and signal its presence. From this, the brain learns not only that contact has occurred, but also its shape, its weight, its firmness. A stone feels different from fabric, not only because of texture, but because of the way it presses against the skin. In contrast, receptors closer to the surface are sensitive to fine detail. They allow the fingertips to trace the ridges of a coin, the threads of cloth, or the lines of a page. This sensitivity makes touch not only protective but also precise, a sense capable of reading the world in the absence of sight. Temperature is another form of touch. Thermoreceptors scattered across the skin respond to changes in warmth and coolness. They do not measure exact degrees but notice differences, alerting the body when heat rises too high or when cold threatens comfort. The refreshing chill of water, the soothing warmth of sunlight, the comfort of a blanket, all are conveyed through this system. Together with pressure and texture, temperature adds depth to the sensory map, making each contact not just a point of pressure, but an experience colored by warmth or coolness. Pain, too, belongs within the family of touch, though it is often thought of separately. Nociceptors, specialized receptors, respond to potentially harmful stimuli, sending urgent signals that prompt withdrawal and protection. Though unpleasant, this form of touch is essential, warning the body of danger and preventing injury. Even pain, then, is part of the greater tapestry of sensation, a reminder of the skin's role as guardian as well as communicator. The sense of touch extends beyond protection into connection. To touch another person is to share presence, whether in the form of a handshake, an embrace, or the resting of one hand upon another. Such contact carries meaning beyond pressure and texture. The nervous system responds to gentle touch with the release of calming chemicals, easing stress, and creating a sense of safety. In this way, touch bridges the physical and the emotional, grounding relationships in the simplest of gestures. Touch also guides movement. Proprioception, the sense of body position, works in tandem with the skin to provide continuous feedback. The pressure of feet against the ground tells the body where it stands. The stretch of muscles signals motion. Even the light brush of clothing reminds the mind of posture and movement. Without these signals, actions would lose precision, and the body would seem detached from the space it inhabits. Touch, then, is not only a sense of contact, but also a sense of orientation, binding the self to the physical world. This sense is remarkable in its adaptability. Sensitivity is not equal across the body. The fingertips and lips, rich in receptors, can detect the smallest variations, while the back or the legs may register only broader differences. This distribution reflects need. Where detail matters most, touch is keen. Where protection and general awareness suffice, sensitivity is broader. Yet wherever it is found, touch remains a constant source of information, alerting the brain to changes in the environment and in the body itself. Even when no external contact is present, the sense of touch can be felt in subtler ways. The warmth of the body against a surface, the gentle pull of gravity, the rise and fall of the chest with breathing, all are forms of touch experienced from within. Close the eyes, and touch becomes even more noticeable, filling the silence of vision with the steady presence of the body. In meditation or stillness, this awareness may expand, becoming not only information but a source of calm, a reminder of being anchored in the moment. Touch shapes memory as well. The texture of childhood toys, the feel of cool water on a summer day, the softness of familiar fabric each leaves an imprint in the mind, recalled not only as images but as sensations. Just as a fragrance can carry memory, so too can the recollection of a touch transport us to another time. The nervous system preserves these impressions, blending them into the continuity of experience. In dreams, touch often appears in softened forms. One may feel the sensation of floating, of pressure, or of warmth, even though no external contact is present. These dream sensations remind us that touch is not only physical but also part of the imagination, a sense that bridges waking and dreaming. As you rest here, notice the touch of your own environment, perhaps the fabric beneath you, the air against your skin, the steady support of the surface that holds you. Each of these is part of the ongoing conversation between body and world. There is no need to seek or to analyze, the signals are already arriving, and the brain is already shaping them into presence. Touch, in this way, is the most immediate of senses, requiring no light, no sound, no special condition, only the simple fact of being alive within a body that feels. The sense of touch, then, is both humble and profound. It protects, it guides, it connects, and it comforts. It reminds us constantly of our place in space, our contact with the world, and our connection with others. It is always present, even in sleep, a silent companion, ensuring awareness of both safety and warmth. As we continue onward, the next senses to join our journey are those of taste and smell, subtle yet rich, and closely bound to memory, emotion, and the quiet pleasure of being. 9. Taste and flavor. The sense of taste is a quieter one than sight or hearing, for it does not fill every moment of the day, but instead arrives in particular experiences, in the presence of food, of drink, of nourishment. Yet, though it is less constant, it is no less profound. Taste guides us not only in pleasure but also in survival, allowing the body to recognize what is nourishing, what is harmful, and what is simply delightful to linger on the tongue. Together with smell, it creates flavor, one of the richest and most personal aspects of perception. The organ of taste is the tongue, though taste buds are also scattered along the roof of the mouth and the throat. The tongue's surface is not smooth but dotted with tiny structures called papillae, within which the taste buds reside. Each taste bud contains clusters of receptor cells, shaped to respond to chemical molecules that dissolve in saliva. When food or drink enters the mouth, these molecules fit into receptors like keys into locks, setting off signals that travel along cranial nerves to the brain. From this, the quiet miracle of taste begins. Traditionally, 5 basic tastes are recognized. Sweetness signals energy, often carried in the form of sugars. Sourness detects acidity, which in excess may be harmful but in balance can be refreshing. Saltiness reflects the presence of essential minerals needed for life. Bitterness is a warning, for many toxins carry this taste, though in small amounts, it can also add depth and complexity. Umami, a more recent addition to the list, arises from glutamate, an amino acid found in protein-rich foods, giving the savory quality of broth, cheese, and mushrooms. Together, these five create a foundation upon which the vast variety of flavors is built. But taste alone is not the full story. The flavor of food is shaped even more by smell, for the nose detects the volatile molecules released as we chew and breathe. Block the nose, and food loses much of its richness, reduced to the bluntness of sweet, sour, salty, bitter, and umami. Allow the nose to participate, and flavors bloom, each bite becoming a complex harmony of taste and scent. This cooperation between tongue and nose demonstrates how senses are not isolated but interwoven, each enriching the other. Texture also plays a role in flavor. The crunch of a fresh apple, the smoothness of cream, the fizz of sparkling water. These sensations come from touch, but they color the overall experience of eating. Temperature, too, adds its influence, with warmth enhancing sweetness and cold sharpening refreshment. Even sight contributes, for the colors of food shape expectation, and expectation itself alters perception. In this way, flavor is not a single sense, but a gathering of many, assembled by the brain into the impression we call taste. Taste is more than physical perception. It is also deeply tied to memory and culture. A single flavor can summon the past, carrying the mind to childhood kitchens, to festivals, to moments of comfort or discovery. The sweetness of fruit may recall summer days. The bitterness of tea may recall quiet reflection. The savor of bread may recall the presence of family. These connections are not only personal but also shared, for each culture builds traditions around taste, weaving food into ritual, identity, and celebration. In this way, taste nourishes not only the body, but also the bonds of community. The sensitivity of taste has clear purpose. Sweetness draws us to energy, saltiness to essential minerals, and umami to protein. Sourness and bitterness, when too strong, caution us against potential harm. The tongue, then, is both a source of pleasure and a guardian of safety, guiding choices long before reason has time to act. This protective role is one reason why children often resist bitter foods more than adults. The system is tuned to caution until experience teaches which flavors are safe. Over time, the nervous system learns to reinterpret bitterness not as danger but as complexity, allowing enjoyment of coffee, dark chocolate, or herbs. Taste also changes with age. In childhood, it may be vivid and intense, while in later years, sensitivity softens. Illness, medication, or even simple changes in physiology can alter perception, reminding us again that senses are not fixed but fluid, shifting with the rhythm of life. And yet, despite these changes, taste remains a source of comfort, a reminder of nourishment, and a spark of pleasure in daily experience. The act of tasting can itself be an invitation to presence, to pause with a sip of water, to notice its coolness, its faint mineral quality, the way it refreshes. Even this simplest of tastes can ground awareness. Eating slowly, savoring each bite, allows taste to unfold more fully, turning nourishment into meditation. In this way, the sense of taste is not only about survival but also about mindfulness, a reminder to linger in the moment. In dreams, taste is rare, but it can appear. A remembered flavor may arise, soft and faint, suggesting that the nervous system does not separate taste entirely from imagination. Just as we can recall a melody or a fragrance, so too can we recall a flavor, though it may be less vivid. This, too, shows how closely taste is tied to memory. its presence carried within us, even in the absence of food. Taste, then, is both simple and profound. It begins with the tongue and its receptors, yet it expands into flavor through the cooperation of smell, touch, sight, and memory. It guides survival, enriches culture, and connects the present to the past. Above all, it reminds us of the intimacy between body and world, for each taste is the result of matter entering the self, of the outside becoming part of the inside. To taste is to participate directly in the cycle of life, to draw nourishment and to savor it, both physically and emotionally. As you rest, you may not be tasting anything at all, yet the memory of flavor is near, waiting to be recalled. The tongue lies quietly, the receptors silent, but the potential remains. Taste, like all senses, is never fully absent, only waiting for its moment to awaken. With this gentle reflection, we leave the tongue and turn next to its companion, the sense of smell, subtle yet powerful, carrying memory and emotion more deeply than any other. 10. The sense of smell. The sense of smell is perhaps the most mysterious of the human senses, subtle and often unnoticed until it calls attention to itself. Unlike vision, which demands light, or hearing, which requires vibration, smell moves quietly, carried invisibly in the air. Molecules drift, rise, and scatter, and with each breath they enter the nose, where the sense of smell transforms them into experience. The world is full of scents, some faint, some overwhelming, some sweet and comforting, others sharp or cautionary. Together they create an atmosphere, a background of perception that often works unnoticed, but that can deeply shape mood, memory, and awareness. The organ of smell is the nose, yet the true seat of this sense lies within the olfactory epithelium, a patch of tissue high inside the nasal cavity. Here reside millions of specialized receptor cells, each with delicate hair-like structures called cilia that reach into the air. These receptors are not sensitive to light or vibration, but to chemical molecules that dissolve in the moist lining of the nose. When such molecules bind to a receptor, they trigger an electrical signal that travels along the olfactory nerve to the brain. Unlike other senses, which pass first through relay stations such as the thalamus, smell connects directly to the olfactory bulb, and then to regions of the brain linked with memory and emotion. This direct pathway explains why scent so often evokes feelings and recollections more vividly than other senses. Unlike taste, which has 5 basic categories, smell is vast and varied. Humans can detect thousands of distinct odors, from the faint fragrance of flowers to the acrid sharpness of smoke. Each odor molecule can fit into certain receptors but not others, and the brain interprets the combined pattern as a particular scent. This means that smell is not limited to a handful of categories but is instead an open system, capable of infinite variation. The nose is, in essence, a living library of molecules, each breath scanning the air for traces of the familiar and the new. Smell plays an essential role in survival. It warns of danger, detecting fire, spoiled food, or unseen chemicals long before they are visible. It also guides appetite, enhancing the flavor of food and helping to identify freshness. Beyond these functions, smell serves as a bridge to the environment. The scent of rain on dry earth, of pine in a forest, of salt near the sea, each connects the body to the landscape, weaving the self into the natural world. What makes smell so powerful, however, is its connection to memory. A fragrance encountered once can return years later and instantly summon the past. A familiar perfume may bring to mind a person, a season, a time of life. The smell of certain foods may awaken childhood memories or cultural traditions. These associations are not abstract but vivid, often filled with emotion. This is because the olfactory system connects closely with the limbic system, the brain's center for memory and feeling. Thus, a scent is never just chemical detection. It is a key that unlocks experience stored deep within. Smell also influences mood in ways that may be subtle but real. Pleasant scents can calm or uplift, while harsh odors may unsettle. Entire traditions of fragrance and incense are built upon this effect, using aroma to shape atmosphere, meditation, or ritual. In daily life, the freshness of air can alter the sense of well-being, making a room feel open or confined, soothing or stifling. Smell, though often quiet, shapes the background of perception in ways that can deeply affect how the world is experienced. The sensitivity of smell varies from person to person and even from moment to moment. Illness may dull it, while hunger or attention may heighten it. Age, too, changes this sense, often reducing its sharpness, though its connection to memory remains strong. Some individuals live with an absence of smell, a condition called anosmia, and often describe it as a kind of disconnection from the world, for the background richness of experience is missing. This reminds us how much smell contributes, even when unnoticed, to the fullness of perception. In sleep, the sense of smell remains partly active, though less vigilant than hearing. Certain strong odors may still rouse the body, serving as quiet guardians, even in rest. In dreams, scents appear rarely, but the brain is capable of recalling them. For memory stores fragrance as clearly as sound or sight. Thus, even when not consciously noticed, smell remains close, ready to awaken both awareness and recollection. Smell is also intimately tied to taste. Together, they create the experience of flavor, blending into a seamless whole. Without smell, food becomes muted, reduced to simple sweetness, sourness, saltiness, bitterness, and umami. With it, flavor becomes complex and memorable. This partnership of senses shows again how perception is not divided but cooperative, each sense enriching the others to create the full texture of life. To reflect on smell is to reflect on presence itself. It is the air we breathe, carrying with it traces of earth, of plant, of water, of life. Each breath is a quiet communion with the world, a reminder that the body is never separate but always connected, always in exchange with the environment. Smell, though invisible, makes this connection felt, binding the inner world of memory to the outer world of nature. As you rest here, notice the air around you. Even if no particular fragrance arises, the quiet rhythm of breath itself is a reminder of this sense, always active, always receiving. Smell is the subtle companion, unnoticed yet profound, linking the self to memory, to feeling, to the environment. With this reflection, the journey continues to the next sense, one that is not outward but inward, the awareness of the body itself, its position, its movement, and its quiet equilibrium. 11. Proprioception and body awareness. There is a sense that does not depend on light or sound or even contact with the world around us. It is quieter, more inward, yet it is always present, guiding every movement and every posture. This is proprioception, sometimes called the sixth sense, the awareness of the body's position and motion in space. Without it, even the simplest act, lifting a hand, standing upright, walking forward, would be uncertain. With it, movement becomes effortless, coordinated, and graceful. It is the silent companion to all other senses, grounding perception in the presence of the body. Proprioception arises from a network of receptors scattered throughout muscles, tendons, and joints. These receptors are sensitive not to light or vibration, but to stretch, tension, and movement. Muscle spindles detect when fibers lengthen or contract. Tendon receptors sense the pull of force. Joint receptors notice angle and rotation. Each sends a stream of signals to the brain, reporting on the state of the body in constant detail. The nervous system gathers this information and builds a map of posture and motion, a continuous awareness that exists even without vision or touch. This sense explains how you can close your eyes and still know where your hands are. It is why you can walk without watching your feet, or reach for an object without measuring each step. Proprioception tells the brain not only the position of limbs but also the effort required to move them, adjusting strength and coordination in real time. In this way, it shapes the experience of movement from within, making action feel natural rather than forced. The importance of proprioception is revealed when it is disturbed. Loss of this sense, though rare, leaves a person unable to move with ease, forcing them to rely on vision for guidance. Even simple tasks, such as standing or grasping, become difficult. This shows how much of movement is guided not by conscious thought but by this quiet awareness, always active in the background, supporting life with stability and flow. Proprioception is also deeply tied to balance. The vestibular system in the inner ear reports the position of the head, while proprioception reports the state of the body. Together, they allow the brain to coordinate posture, ensuring that the body adjusts smoothly to gravity and motion. This cooperation means that even in darkness, when sight is absent, the body remains oriented, guided by the inner senses of equilibrium and position. In daily life, proprioception shapes not only physical action, but also comfort, the awareness of posture, of slouching or sitting upright, of tension in the shoulders or relaxation in the hands, all comes from this sense. It is what allows the body to adjust unconsciously, shifting in a chair, stretching after stillness, or turning in sleep. These movements are often unnoticed, but they are guided by proprioception, the body's quiet reminder of its own presence. This sense is also deeply connected to skill and practice. Athletes, dancers, musicians, all refine proprioception through repetition, training the nervous system to sense subtle differences in movement. A pianist does not look at each finger, yet the hands move with precision across the keys. A runner does not watch each step, yet the stride becomes smooth and balanced. These abilities emerge because proprioception learns, adapting and sharpening with experience, storing patterns of movement until they flow without thought. Even in stillness, proprioception is active. The awareness of being seated or lying down, the knowledge of where the arms rest, of how the legs are arranged, of the head's tilt, all are part of this sense. To close the eyes and turn attention inward is to notice the body's presence more fully, as though illuminated from within. In meditation, this inward awareness can deepen, becoming not only practical but calming, a gentle anchor for the mind. Proprioception also plays a role in dreams. One may dream of running, of floating, of climbing, and though no actual motion occurs, the sense of body position remains vivid. The nervous system, even in sleep, can create impressions of posture and movement, blending imagination with the inner map of the body. This demonstrates again how perception is not only external but also internal, shaped by the interplay of body and mind. This sense, like others, changes over time. In childhood, it develops as movement is explored. In adulthood, it sharpens with practice and habit. In later years, it may soften, requiring more attention to balance and motion. Yet throughout life, it remains essential, quietly guiding every action, shaping every gesture, and reminding us that perception is not only about the world beyond the body, but also about the body itself. To reflect on proprioception is to reflect on presence. The body is not an object moved from outside, but a living system that senses itself, that knows its own form, its own rhythm, its own orientation in space. Without this sense, perception would feel incomplete, for the self would seem detached from the body. With it, perception is embodied, grounded in the continuous awareness of being. As you rest, notice how you know the position of your own body without needing to look. Perhaps you sense the angle of your head, the weight of your arms, the contact of your body with the surface beneath you. This awareness is proprioception at work. Quiet, constant, always present. It is the sense of the body itself, the inner companion to all other senses, a reminder that to perceive the world is also to perceive oneself within it. 12. The sense of time and inner rhythm. There is a sense that is not often listed alongside sight, sound, touch, taste, or smell, yet it is one that pervades every aspect of life. This is the sense of time not measured by clocks or calendars, but felt within the body and the mind. It is an awareness of rhythm, of sequence, of duration. It is what allows us to know that one moment follows another, that movement has speed, that rest has length, that life itself unfolds as a flow. Without it, the world would be a scattered collection of events, disconnected and disorienting. With it, experience becomes continuous, ordered, and meaningful. Unlike the external senses, time is not detected by a single organ but by many systems working together. The brain contains networks of neurons that act as oscillators, producing regular cycles of activity. These cycles provide a rhythm against which events can be measured. On a larger scale, the body carries circadian rhythms, a natural cycle of roughly 24 hours that governs sleep, wakefulness, and many processes in between. This inner clock is guided by the rising and setting of the sun, but it also persists in its absence, showing that the body itself contains a deep sense of rhythm. This temporal awareness is subtle but constant. It allows us to move in coordination, to clap in rhythm, to walk in step, to anticipate the next beat of music. It guides speech, giving cadence and pause, allowing language to unfold in patterns that can be understood. Even silence carries rhythm, for it is felt as a pause, an interval that shapes what comes before and after. Without this sense of timing, communication would falter, and movement would lose its flow. Time is also felt internally. Waiting in stillness brings a sense of slowness, while excitement or engagement makes time seem to pass quickly. In reflection, a single moment may feel expanded, while entire days may pass unnoticed. This shows that the sense of time is not fixed but elastic, shaped by attention, by emotion, by context. The nervous system, in weaving perception, bends time to experience, making it personal as well as universal. The body itself carries layers of rhythm. The heartbeat is one, steady and continuous, pulsing through life without pause. Breathing is another, rising and falling like waves, marking time in a gentle sequence. Muscles move in cycles, neurons fire in patterns, hormones flow in daily rhythms. Even within sleep, stages of dreaming and rest repeat in cycles through the night. Each of these patterns contributes to the sense of time, for they remind the body of its own continuity, its own flow. Memory, too, depends on time. It is what allows the mind to distinguish past from present, to build a story of life rather than a blur of impressions. The sense of time orders memory into sequence, so that experiences can be recalled in the shape of a journey rather than as scattered fragments. In dreams, this ordering sometimes loosens, and events may appear out of sequence, reminding us that the sense of time is a construct of the waking mind, woven carefully, but not immovable. Even animals display time perception. Birds migrate with the seasons, insects emerge in cycles, plants themselves open and close with light. These rhythms are not guided by conscious clocks, but by internal systems that respond to the turning of the earth, to the alternation of day and night. In this way, the sense of time is not only human, but part of the larger rhythm of life, a universal pulse that connects all living things. When time perception is disrupted, the world feels unfamiliar. Long isolation, without sun or clock, can shift circadian rhythm, leaving day and night blurred. In states of deep meditation, time may seem to vanish, moments blending into one another until only presence remains. Under strain or in sudden danger, time may appear to slow, each detail sharpened, each second stretched. These experiences remind us that time, though steady in physics, is flexible in perception, shaped by the mind's own rhythms. This sense is deeply tied to balance and coordination. To catch a ball, to play an instrument, to dance, to walk all depend on timing, on the awareness of when to begin, when to pause, when to act. This awareness is not conscious calculation but embodied rhythm, a sense the body carries within itself. It is why music can move us, why a heartbeat can soothe us, why silence can rest us. Time is not only measured but also felt, flowing through both body and mind. To reflect on this sense is to notice the rhythms within oneself. The pulse in the chest, the breath in the lungs, the steady pace of thought. These rhythms are not only measures of time but also anchors of presence, reminding us that each moment arrives, lingers, and passes. The awareness of this flow is calming, for it shows that nothing is fixed, that all moves gently onward, and that rest itself is part of the rhythm of life. As you rest here, notice the rhythm of your own breathing, the quiet rise and fall that marks the passing of time without urgency. This is the body's own clock, steady and calm, guiding awareness into softness. With this reflection, the journey turns next to another form of perception, one that weaves all the senses together, the creation of reality itself through the unity of perception. 13. Integration of the senses. Though we often speak of the senses as separate sight, sound, touch, taste, and smell, with balance, proprioception, and time awareness alongside them in truth, they are never alone. The mind does not process vision without sound, or touch without movement, or flavor without fragrance. Instead, all senses weave together into a single tapestry of experience, creating the perception of reality as a whole. This quiet integration is so natural that it is rarely noticed, yet without it the world would appear fragmented and confusing. Every moment of daily life depends on this blending. Consider the simple act of eating. The tongue perceives sweetness, saltiness, or bitterness, while the nose detects the fragrances that create flavor. At the same time, the texture of the food is felt through touch. The sound of chewing adds a background rhythm, and the sight of the food shapes expectation. All of these come together not as separate signals but as one impression, the full experience of a meal. Remove any single sense, and the flavor is altered. Block the nose, and food tastes dull. Close the eyes, and anticipation shifts. Integration makes the experience complete. Walking provides another example. The feet feel the ground through touch. Muscles and joints report motion through proprioception. The vestibular system maintains balance. The eyes guide direction, and the ears listen for nearby sounds. Each sense alone provides only part of the picture. Together, they allow movement that is steady, efficient, and safe. The nervous system coordinates these inputs seamlessly, so that one is not aware of constant calculations but instead feels the flow of movement through space. The brain achieves this integration through a remarkable network of connections. Information from each sense converges in regions of the cerebral cortex, where it is compared, aligned, and blended. Vision and hearing cooperate to locate a sound, as when one sees and hears a bird at once. Touch and vision cooperate to identify objects, as when closing the eyes, yet recognizing something by feel, guided also by the memory of its sight. Even smell and emotion intertwine, for the brain links odor with memory, turning a fragrance into a vivid recollection. Sometimes, when senses disagree, the illusion reveals the power of integration. Consider the ventriloquist effect, when a voice seems to come from a puppet because the eyes see its moving mouth while the ears hear the sound from another source. The brain resolves the conflict by blending them, assigning the voice to the puppet. Or consider flavor illusions, when color alters taste expectation. making clear liquids seem to taste like orange if it is tinted the right shade. These effects show that perception is not a simple record of the world, but a construction, built from multiple senses working together. This integration also explains why the loss of one sense often sharpens others. A person without sight may develop heightened hearing and touch, for the brain adapts, giving greater attention to the remaining senses. The nervous system is not fixed but flexible, redistributing resources so that the tapestry of perception remains as complete as possible. This adaptability is itself a form of integration, ensuring that awareness continues even when one thread is missing. The blending of senses is also what allows humans to appreciate art, music, and culture. A performance is not only heard but seen, felt in rhythm, and sometimes even associated with scent or memory. A painting is not only seen but also felt through imagined texture, perhaps even through remembered sound or place. This richness comes because the senses do not work in isolation but resonate together, each enhancing the others. On a more subtle level, integration shapes the sense of self. The awareness of being a single body in a single world arises because the senses agree. Vision confirms what touch feels. Balance confirms what muscles signal. Hearing confirms what the eyes perceive. When all align, the mind experiences unity, a coherent perception of self moving through a coherent environment. If this unity falters, as in certain illnesses or dreamlike states, the world can seem strange or disjointed, reminding us how essential integration is for stability of awareness. Even in rest, when eyes are closed and ears hear little, integration continues. The brain maintains an inner model of the world, ready to blend sensory input as soon as it arises. In dreams, this integration takes imaginative form, weaving together sensations, memories, and emotions into experiences that feel whole, even though they do not come from the external environment. This shows that perception is always integrated, whether grounded in the outside world or created within. To reflect on the integration of the senses is to recognize that perception is not 5 or 7 or even 10 separate abilities. It is one flowing process, gathering information from many channels and blending them into the seamless experience of reality. The world feels continuous not because any one sense provides it, but because all senses, together, create harmony. As you rest, notice how even in stillness the senses cooperate. The feel of support beneath you, the sound of air, the awareness of posture, the faint impressions of light through closed eyes. All of these combine into one presence, one moment of experience. This is the gift of integration, to make many streams of perception into one river of awareness. From this river, the journey will flow onward, into the mind's own role in shaping reality, the way perception becomes not only sensation but interpretation, meaning, and story. 14. Perception as the brain's story. All of the senses, with their varied streams of information, are like threads in a great loom. Each provides detail: light, sound, texture, fragrance, taste, position, rhythm. Yet on their own, these threads are incomplete. It is the brain that gathers them together, weaving them into a continuous fabric that we call perception. This fabric is not a perfect mirror of the outside world, but rather a story, a careful construction that allows us to make sense of experience. Perception is, in essence, the mind's interpretation of the signals it receives, shaped by memory, attention, and expectation. When light strikes the eye, when sound enters the ear, when touch presses against the skin, the raw signals are simply patterns of energy. The brain must decode them, transform them into color, tone, texture, and meaning. The red of a flower, the softness of fabric, the warmth of a flame. These are not properties that exist outside the body, but experiences created within it. In this sense, the world as it is felt is always a story told by the nervous system, one that allows us to live, not in chaos, but in coherence. The process of shaping this story begins in the earliest stages of sensation. The brain is not passive. It filters what enters awareness, emphasizing some signals while softening others. Much of what reaches the senses never rises to attention. The steady feel of clothing against the skin is soon ignored. The background hum of a room fades. Even the constant presence of one's nose in the field of vision is overlooked. The brain tells a story not of everything, but of what is useful, what matters in the moment. This selective attention is part of how perception remains clear rather than overwhelming. Memory plays a central role in shaping perception. The brain does not interpret each sensation anew, but compares it to what has been experienced before. The sight of a tree is recognized because memory supplies the pattern. The sound of a familiar voice is identified instantly because memory anchors it. This means that perception is always a blend of present input and past experience. The story told by the brain is never only about what is happening now, but also about what has happened before, woven together into continuity. Expectation also colors perception. The mind predicts what it will encounter, and these predictions guide awareness. When walking into a kitchen, one may expect the scent of food. When turning toward a friend, one may expect a certain voice. These expectations make perception faster and more efficient, but they can also alter it. Sometimes, the brain sees what it expects rather than what is truly there, filling in gaps, smoothing over uncertainty. This is why illusions can deceive, because the brain prefers a coherent story, even if it must invent part of it. Emotion is deeply tied to this process. The same sound may feel soothing or unsettling depending on mood. The same fragrance may recall comfort or sadness depending on memory. Perception is not neutral but colored by feeling, which gives it depth and personal meaning. The world as it appears is never only external but also inward, shaped by the state of the body and the mind. This blending of sensation, memory, expectation, and emotion makes perception not only a process, but an experience of self. Each person's story is unique, for each mind carries its own history, its own patterns, its own tendencies. The same environment may appear differently to two people, not because the world has changed, but because the stories told by their brains are not the same. This individuality shows that perception is not a fixed mirror but a living narrative. Dreams provide a clear example of perception as story. In dreams, the senses are quiet, yet the brain still creates experiences that feel vivid and whole. A place is seen, a voice is heard, a touch is felt, all without external input. The dream demonstrates that the brain does not merely record the world but can generate it from within, using memory, imagination, and emotion to tell its own tale. Waking perception is more grounded, guided by senses, but it too is a construction, a story assembled from signals and shaped by the mind. Even in waking life, the story may shift. Attention may narrow, highlighting one detail while others fade. Fatigue may soften perception, making colors less vivid, sounds less sharp. Stress may heighten awareness of threat while ignoring safety. Calm may broaden awareness, making the world feel more spacious. Each of these states alters the story, showing that perception is fluid, changing with the condition of body and mind. The realization that perception is a story does not make it less real, but more wondrous. It shows how the mind transforms vibration into sound, light into color, chemical trace into fragrance, and texture into feeling. It shows how meaning is not found but created, how reality as lived is not raw data but a carefully woven tapestry. To perceive is to participate in this weaving, to live within a story that is both shared and personal. As you reflect on this, you may notice the gentle blending of your own senses in this very moment. The awareness of sound, the awareness of position, the awareness of breath and stillness, all flow together into one experience, one story of presence. The mind, without effort, has already woven them into coherence. This quiet storytelling is the essence of perception, the way the self makes sense of the world. From here, the journey will move into the variations of this story, how the senses differ among individuals, how perception is unique for each person, and how these differences reveal the diversity of human experience. 15 variations in human senses. Though all humans share the same fundamental senses, the experience of perception is never exactly the same from one person to another. Each body is unique, each nervous system carries its own sensitivities, and each life shapes its senses in different ways. This variation makes perception deeply personal, reminding us that the world is not a single fixed experience but a mosaic of perspectives, each colored by biology, memory, and individuality. Vision provides a clear example of this diversity. Some people perceive colors differently, a condition often called color vision deficiency. To them, shades that appear distinct to others may blend together, while contrasts may emerge that others overlook. For someone with red-green color blindness, the world holds fewer distinctions in those ranges, yet the experience remains complete, for the brain adapts, shaping perception around what it can detect. Others may have sharper or softer acuity, seeing detail with precision or perceiving the world in gentler outlines. Age also alters vision, with lenses yellowing slightly, making colors warmer, and with sensitivity to light changing, adjusting the palette of life over time. Hearing, too, varies. Some ears are keenly sensitive, detecting subtle tones or faint sounds, while others are less so. Musicians often refine their hearing, becoming attuned to pitch and harmony in ways that others may not notice. With age, high frequencies often fade, making voices seem softer, birdsong less distinct. Yet even with these changes, the sense of hearing adapts, finding richness in rhythm, in depth, in the tones that remain. The world of sound shifts, but it never disappears, always offering presence in new ways. Touch is also personal. Some people have heightened sensitivity, noticing even the lightest contact or the faintest change in temperature. Others have a broader threshold, perceiving less detail but still guided by pressure and warmth. These differences may be shaped by the distribution of receptors, by attention, or by experience. For some, gentle touch brings strong comfort. For others, it may be overwhelming. Each variation reflects the uniqueness of nervous systems, tuned in subtle ways to the body and environment. Taste and smell show some of the widest variation. Some individuals are super tasters, with heightened sensitivity to bitterness, sweetness, and other flavors, making food seem more intense. Others may find tastes milder, more subdued, and thus prefer stronger flavors. Smell, too, varies widely. A fragrance that is vivid to one person may be faint to another, and certain odors may be undetectable altogether. These differences reveal the individuality of olfactory receptors, which vary from person to person. Smell, because of its deep ties to memory, also becomes uniquely personal, with each individual carrying their own library of associations. Balance and proprioception, though usually unnoticed, can differ as well. Some people move with natural ease, finding coordination effortless, while others require more attention to posture and movement. Practice and training can sharpen these senses, as in dancers or athletes, while illness or age may soften them. Even the sense of time differs, with some perceiving intervals as short and others as long, some living in a fast rhythm, others in a slower flow. These inner differences shape how life is experienced, turning universal senses into personal rhythms. Variation can also occur through loss or absence of a sense. A person without sight experiences the world more fully through hearing, touch, and smell, often with heightened sensitivity in those channels. Someone without hearing learns to rely more on vision, on touch, on rhythm perceived through vibration. These adaptations show the flexibility of perception, the ability of the brain to shift, to expand one sense when another is quiet. The result is not a diminished world, but a different one, rich in its own ways. Even within the same individual, senses are not fixed but change over time. Childhood brings vivid sensitivity, with flavors, sounds, and textures experienced with intensity. Adulthood brings refinement, as perception is shaped by practice, culture, and memory. Later life brings shifts, as senses soften yet deepen, guided less by sharpness and more by familiarity and meaning. The senses are not static but evolving, reflecting the journey of the body and the mind across time. These variations remind us that perception is not an objective window onto the world, but a living interpretation, one that differs from person to person. Each individual carries their own balance of clarity, sensitivity, and association, and so each experiences the world in a way that is both shared and unique. Two people may look at the same sky, hear the same music, taste the same fruit, and yet their experiences, though overlapping, are never identical. Each sense paints with its own palette, and each brain tells its own story. To reflect on these differences is to appreciate the diversity of perception. No single way of sensing is more complete or more true. Each is a perspective, a way of weaving the world into experience. This diversity enriches humanity, for it means that no one person holds the full picture, but together, countless variations create a tapestry of shared and personal realities. As you rest here, you may notice your own senses, unique to you alone, the way your body perceives comfort, the way your ears notice certain sounds, the way your eyes respond to light, the way your memory colors a fragrance. These are your own variations, your own story of perception, and as the journey continues, we will turn from these differences to the ways perception itself can adapt, shifting and reshaping in response to change, reminding us that the senses are not fixed but fluid, always capable of transformation. 16. Adaptability of the senses. The senses, though ancient and enduring, are not rigid. They are alive, flexible, and capable of change. Adaptability is one of their most remarkable qualities, allowing perception to adjust to new conditions, to recover after loss, and to sharpen through practice. This adaptability ensures that the story of the world continues, even when the channels of perception shift. It is a quiet resilience, woven into the very fabric of the nervous system. One form of adaptability is sensory adjustment to constant stimulation. When entering a room with a strong fragrance, the scent may seem overwhelming at first, but within minutes, it fades into the background. The receptors in the nose have not stopped working. Rather, the brain has decided the information is no longer urgent, allowing attention to move elsewhere. The same occurs with touch. The feel of clothing is vivid when first put on, but soon disappears from awareness. This process, called sensory adaptation, prevents the mind from being overwhelmed, highlighting change rather than constancy. It is why the senses remain fresh, always ready to notice what is new or important. Adaptability also appears in the way senses sharpen through practice. A musician learns to hear the subtle difference between two pitches, distinctions that others might not notice. A painter trains the eye to perceive shades of color and variations of light. A chef develops heightened sensitivity to taste and fragrance, able to distinguish ingredients within a dish. These refinements are not fixed talents but cultivated abilities, showing that the brain and senses grow with use, adjusting their thresholds and connections in response to experience. When one sense is absent or diminished, adaptability becomes even more striking. People who lose sight often develop keener hearing or touch. The blind musician who hears nuances in sound, the reader of Braille who perceives words through fingertips, both demonstrate how the brain reallocates attention and resources. Neurons that once processed vision may strengthen their connections to hearing or touch, making those senses sharper. Similarly, a person who loses hearing may learn to rely more on vision, noticing subtle movements of lips, expressions, and gestures. The brain is not bound to its original map but rewrites it, ensuring continuity of perception. This adaptability is especially clear in childhood, when the nervous system is most flexible. Children deprived of one sense early in life often adapt more completely, for their brains are still shaping themselves, still deciding how to distribute resources. Yet even in adulthood, change is possible. Learning a new skill, recovering from injury, or adjusting to sensory loss all show the plasticity of the brain. The senses may not return to their original state, but they find new balance, reshaping awareness in ways that maintain connection with the world. Even within daily life, adaptability reveals itself. Eyes adjust from bright sunlight to dim interiors, expanding or contracting the pupil to balance light. Ears adapt to loud or soft environments, resetting their sensitivity so that speech remains clear. Taste shifts after repeated exposure, as once bitter foods become palatable and even enjoyable. These small adjustments occur constantly, allowing perception to remain accurate in a world that is always changing. Adaptability also appears in how perception interprets unusual conditions. In weightlessness, as astronauts experience in space, balance must be redefined without gravity's constant pull. The vestibular system loses its usual signals, and the brain gradually learns to rely more on vision and proprioception. In deep underwater diving, hearing and pressure are altered, and again, the brain adapts. These examples show that the senses are not tied only to Earth's ordinary conditions, but can reconfigure themselves when the environment shifts dramatically. Memory and imagination also play a role in adaptability. When a sense is absent, the mind fills gaps with remembered experience. A person who has lost sight may still see through mental imagery, drawing on memory to shape their understanding of space. Someone who has lost hearing may still hear internally, recalling voices or music through inner sound. These inner senses soften the transition, allowing perception to remain whole even when external input changes. Adaptability is not without its challenges. When senses shift suddenly, as an injury or illness, the brain may struggle, producing dizziness, confusion, or disorientation until new patterns are learned. But with time and patience, adaptation occurs, and the new balance becomes natural. This capacity reveals the resilience of the nervous system, its ability to adjust and restore harmony. To reflect on adaptability is to recognize that perception is never fixed. The senses are not static organs but living processes, changing with use, with environment, with life itself. This flexibility ensures that awareness continues, even in unfamiliar or altered conditions. It means that the world can always be perceived, even if differently, for the story of perception is written anew each day. As you rest here, you may notice your own adaptability, the way your eyes adjusted to light, the way your ears have tuned to the quiet of the moment, the way your body shifts for comfort without thought. These small adaptations are constant, reminders of the flexibility that keeps perception fluid and life harmonious. From here, the journey will move to the boundaries of ordinary senses, the extraordinary perceptions that extend beyond the usual five, adding depth and subtlety to human awareness. 17. Extraordinary and overlooked senses. When people speak of the senses, they often limit them to five: sight, hearing, touch, taste, and smell. Yet the human body carries far more than these. Some so subtle they pass unnoticed, others so extraordinary they seem almost beyond ordinary perception. These additional senses remind us that awareness is layered and complex, and that the way humans connect with the world is richer than the traditional list suggests. One such sense is equilibrioception, the sense of balance. It arises from the vestibular system within the inner ear, where tiny structures filled with fluid and delicate hairs respond to movement and gravity. As the head tilts or the body moves, these structures shift, sending signals to the brain about orientation. Without this sense, standing upright, walking smoothly, or even keeping the eyes steady would be impossible. It is often overlooked because it works so seamlessly, rarely noticed unless disturbed, as in dizziness or vertigo. Yet balance is a constant companion, guiding posture and motion every moment of life. Another is interoception, the awareness of the body's internal state. This sense arises from receptors inside organs, muscles, and tissues, reporting hunger, thirst, heartbeat, breathing, and temperature. It tells when the body is tired, when it needs water, when the stomach is full, or when the heart races. Interoception is subtle, more of a background awareness than a sharp perception, but it shapes behavior in profound ways. It guides survival, ensuring that the body's needs are recognized and met. It also contributes to emotion, for many feelings arise from internal states: the flutter of anxiety, the warmth of calm, the heaviness of fatigue. There is also thermoception, the ability to sense heat and cold, not only through skin but also deep within the body. This sense regulates comfort, prompting the body to seek shade and heat, or warmth and cold, maintaining balance against the environment. Alongside it is nociception, the sense of pain, which, though unpleasant, is vital for protection. Pain warns of harm, urging withdrawal from danger, alerting the body to injury, and ensuring care and rest when needed. Some senses border on the extraordinary, such as magnetoreception, a faint awareness of Earth's magnetic fields. While well developed in birds, turtles, and other animals that navigate long distances, research suggests that humans, too, may carry a subtle form of it, though it is not consciously noticed. This hidden sense hints at ancient connections, remnants of orientation that may once have guided migration and movement in deep evolutionary time. Even perception of time, already reflected upon, can be seen as an overlooked sense. It provides rhythm and sequence, giving order to memory and action. Similarly, proprioception, the sense of body position, is often left out of simple lists, yet it is central to awareness of self. These senses, though less celebrated than vision or hearing, are equally vital, for they form the framework of daily life. The extraordinary nature of human perception is also revealed in synesthesia, a condition where senses blend in unusual ways. For some, sounds may appear as colors, numbers may carry distinct personalities, or tastes may evoke shapes. Though rare, synesthesia demonstrates that the boundaries between senses are not absolute, but flexible, capable of merging into unique experiences. It shows that perception can take forms beyond the ordinary, reminding us that the mind creates its own patterns of awareness. Overlooked senses also include subtle abilities of attention and intuition. While not separate organs of detection, they reflect the integration of many signals into a single impression. The feeling of being watched, the sense of unease in certain places, or the calm presence in others, these may arise from subconscious processing of sights, sounds, and body cues. Though not mystical, they reveal how much the brain notices beyond conscious awareness, shaping perception in ways that feel extraordinary. Even within ordinary senses, extraordinary capacities exist. Some individuals can detect more shades of color, a condition called tetrachromacy, giving them a richer visual palette. Others have exceptional pitch perception, able to identify or reproduce tones without reference. Some can distinguish thousands of fragrances with precision, while others perceive subtle differences in texture or taste. These abilities show that human perception is not uniform but ranges from ordinary to exceptional, each variation adding depth to the spectrum of experience. To reflect on these overlooked and extraordinary senses is to recognize the hidden richness of perception. The body is not limited to 5 channels but carries many, some quiet, some unusual, some only beginning to be understood. Together, they create a perception of the world that is far broader and deeper than is usually imagined. As you rest here, notice how many senses are quietly at work. Balance holds the body steady. Touch feels the support beneath you. Proprioception tells you where you are. Interoception reminds you of breath and heartbeat, and time flows gently in the rhythm of the moment. These senses, whether ordinary or extraordinary, are always present, guiding awareness. From here, the journey turns toward the role of senses in memory and identity, showing how perception does not only shape the present, but also weaves the past into the story of the self. 18 senses and memory. The senses do not only open the present moment to experience, they also weave the past into awareness. Memory and perception are deeply entwined, for what is seen, heard, or felt does not vanish once it passes, but leaves an imprint stored within the mind. The senses, then, are both gateways to the immediate world and keys to recollection, unlocking experiences long after they have occurred. This bond between senses and memory is one of the most powerful aspects of human life, shaping identity, emotion, and continuity of self. Among all senses, smell is perhaps the most closely tied to memory. A single fragrance can bring the past rushing back with surprising vividness. The scent of a flower may recall a garden from childhood. The aroma of bread may summon the memory of family gatherings. The faint trace of perfume may remind one of a person long gone. This immediacy is due to anatomy. Signals from the olfactory system travel directly to brain regions linked with memory and emotion, bypassing the usual relays. Smell and memory are therefore inseparable, their connection ancient and enduring. Taste also calls upon memory. Certain flavors carry not only physical pleasure but also deep associations. The sweetness of a fruit may recall summer days. The warmth of spice may evoke a season of celebration, and the bitterness of tea may summon quiet moments of reflection. These memories are not abstract but sensory in themselves. When recalled, they often bring back not just the event, but the flavor, as though it were tasted again. In this way, memory preserves not only ideas but experiences, keeping the richness of life alive within the mind. Sight, too, is a powerful vessel of memory. Photographs capture moments, but even without them, the mind holds images, the colors of a landscape, the light of a certain day, the face of someone beloved. Visual memory shapes imagination, allowing places to be revisited long after they are gone. Hearing works in much the same way. A song once heard may echo decades later, carrying with it the emotions of the time. The sound of a voice may remain long after silence, recalled with such clarity that it feels present once again. Touch, though less often discussed in this way, also carries memory. The feel of a certain fabric, the warmth of a hand, the smoothness of a stone. Picked up in youth, these sensations can be stored as vividly as images or sounds. They may not surface as often, but when they do, they return with a fullness that brings the body into the memory, not just the mind. These sensory memories are not stored in isolation but interwoven, creating the texture of recollection. A remembered event may arrive with its sounds, sights, smells, and touches, all together, a vivid replay that feels as though the moment lives again. This integration gives memory its richness, allowing the past to be experienced not as fact, but as lived reality. Memory is not only about the past, it is also essential for perception in the present. To recognize an object, the brain compares current sensory input to stored patterns. The ability to read language, to identify voices, to know a place all rely on memory. Without it, the senses would provide only fragments, unconnected and unfamiliar. Memory gives continuity, allowing perception to build upon experience and thus shape meaning. Emotion is closely tied to this process. A memory recalled through the senses often carries the same feelings that accompanied it originally. A song may bring joy, a scent may bring sorrow, a taste may bring comfort. The senses and emotions are bound together in memory, ensuring that recollection is not dry or distant but alive and felt. This explains why memories triggered by senses can be more powerful than those recalled through thought alone. The senses also shape collective memory, forming traditions and culture. Certain foods, fragrances, or songs are shared across generations, linking the present to the past. Rituals often rely on sensory experiences. The lighting of candles, the sound of drums, the taste of special meals. These sensory anchors preserve continuity, reminding groups of their shared history. In this way, the senses do not only shape individual memory, but also weave the memory of communities. Even in dreams, senses play a role in memory. A remembered place may appear with its colors, sounds, and textures intact, though shaped by imagination. Dreams often blend memory with invention, showing again how closely the senses and recollection are tied. The mind, even in sleep, draws upon sensory memory to construct its stories, keeping the past alive in altered forms. To reflect on the senses and memory is to recognize that the past never disappears entirely. It lingers in the impressions carried by the body and mind, ready to be awakened by the faintest stimulus. A breath of fragrance, a note of music, a flicker of light, any of these may unlock a moment long forgotten, bringing it back into the present. This continuity forms identity, for memory creates the sense of being the same person across time, despite all the changes of life. As you rest here, you may notice the quiet presence of your own sensory memories. Perhaps a sound or a fragrance comes to mind, perhaps an image or a taste, carrying with it a gentle sense of the past. These are reminders that perception is not bound only to the present moment, but also carries the past within it. From here, the journey turns to how the senses shape not only memory but also emotion, guiding the feelings that color human experience and giving depth to the story of perception. 19 Senses and emotion. The senses are not only gateways to the external world, they are also bridges to the inner world of feeling. Every sight, sound, fragrance, taste, or touch is infused with emotion, and often it is the senses that awaken feelings more powerfully than thought alone. To perceive is never neutral. The body and mind color experience with mood, shaping each moment into something felt as well as known. The senses and emotion are bound together, each shaping the other in the quiet rhythm of life. Vision, for example, is more than the detection of light and color. A sunrise, painted with soft gold and rose, may bring calm or awe. A darkened sky, heavy with clouds, may stir melancholy or reflection. The colors of a place can soothe or unsettle, for the brain links visual perception with the limbic system, the deep structures of emotion. Even abstract shapes and patterns can move us, bringing harmony or tension, serenity or unease. What the eyes see becomes not only information but also atmosphere, a mood that settles upon the mind. Sound may stir feeling even more directly. A melody can bring joy or sadness. A rhythm can energize or soothe. A voice can comfort or disturb. The vibrations that reach the ear travel swiftly to regions of the brain where emotion is shaped. This is why music can move the heart without words, why a lullaby can calm a child, why silence itself can carry peace. Sound is not only heard but felt, woven into the emotional state of the listener. Touch is deeply tied to emotion as well. A gentle hand upon the shoulder, the warmth of an embrace, the softness of fabric. These experiences calm the nervous system, releasing chemicals of comfort and trust. Conversely, harsh touch or sudden contact can bring alarm, reminding us of the body's vulnerability. Touch, because it is direct and intimate, has perhaps the strongest connection to emotional safety. It reassures, soothes, and binds people together in closeness. Smell and taste, too, carry emotions rooted in memory and survival. A fragrance can recall love, longing, or nostalgia, while certain odors may awaken caution or discomfort. The smell of flowers may bring joy, while smoke may bring unease. Taste, being tied closely to survival, brings pleasure in sweetness, caution in bitterness, satisfaction in savoriness. These reactions are not only physical but emotional, guiding behavior and coloring experience with feeling. Emotion, in turn, shapes perception. When calm, the senses open broadly, receiving details with gentleness. When anxious, the senses sharpen, searching for threat, narrowing focus to what may seem dangerous. Joy makes colors brighter, sounds lighter, touches more pleasant. Sadness may mute them, softening the vibrancy of perception. Thus, the senses and emotions are not separate streams, but a single current, each influencing the other. This relationship is seen clearly in art and ritual. Fragrance, music, color, and texture are often used together to shape emotion, guiding groups into shared states of joy, mourning, or reverence. The senses carry emotion into the body, and in doing so, they unify experience, making feelings not only ideas but embodied states. Neuroscience shows this connection in the closeness of sensory pathways to emotional centers of the brain. The amygdala, the hippocampus, the insula, all are involved in both perception and feeling. This overlap ensures that every sensory impression is infused with emotion, and that every emotion is supported by sensory texture. A feeling is never without a sensory anchor, and a perception is never without an emotional tone. Even in dreams, this bond remains. A scene in a dream may bring fear or delight, not because of its logic, but because of its sensory richness. The darkness, the sound, the touch. Dreams remind us that emotion is carried not by thought alone, but by the senses, whether real or imagined. To reflect on this is to see that perception is not a neutral record of the world. It is always personal, always emotional, shaped by the body's state, by memory, by context. The senses do not merely present the world. They color it, giving it warmth, intensity, and depth. As you rest here, notice how even the quietest perceptions carry feeling. The softness of support beneath you may bring ease. The rhythm of breathing may bring calm. The faint background of sound may bring presence. These emotions are not separate from the senses but flow through them, making this moment one of embodied feeling. With this reflection, the journey moves toward its final stage. The calm unity of perception, the gentle harmony that closes the circle of the senses. 20. The calm unity of perception. At the end of this gentle journey through the senses, it becomes clear that perception is not a collection of separate parts, but a unity, a harmony that weaves the body and the world into a single fabric. Sight, sound, touch, taste, smell, balance, proprioception, interoception, and time awareness. Each contributes its own thread, but together they form the seamless tapestry of experience. This unity is so natural, so continuous, that it is rarely noticed. Yet to reflect upon it is to see that life itself flows from this quiet integration, the merging of many streams into one river of awareness. In daily life, the unity of perception gives stability and coherence. As you walk, vision guides the path, hearing listens for approach, touch feels the ground, balance holds you steady, and proprioception maps the position of each limb. You do not think of each sense separately. Instead, you experience walking as a single act. This is the power of unity, to make countless details into one fluid experience. The world feels whole because the senses join together, their boundaries dissolved in the living act of perception. The same is true of rest. As you lie quietly, the senses soften but do not vanish. The faint impression of light filters through closed eyes. The sound of air flows gently. The body feels the surface beneath it. The breath marks the rhythm of time. These impressions are not scattered but fused into one awareness, a calm presence that holds the self within the moment. Even in stillness, unity remains. For perception never ceases but only grows quieter, more subtle. This harmony extends beyond the present into memory and imagination. When you recall a past moment, it often returns not as fragments, but as a whole, the sight, the sound, the feeling, the mood, all together. When you dream, the senses create entire worlds, weaving images, voices, and sensations into experiences that feel complete. The unity of perception continues, whether in waking, in memory, or in sleep, reminding us that the mind always seeks coherence, always shapes awareness into wholeness. Emotion, too, is part of this unity. No perception is untouched by feeling, and no feeling is without sensory presence. The warmth of color may calm, the sound of music may uplift, the touch of comfort may soothe. The senses and emotions flow together, inseparable, blending into the total experience of being. This is why the world is never felt as mere data but as atmosphere, mood, and meaning, because unity makes perception into life. To rest in this understanding is to find calm. The senses, though many, are never chaotic. They are balanced, ordered, integrated by the brain into a single stream of awareness. Even when one sense is absent or dimmed, the others rise to meet the world, ensuring continuity. Even when conditions change, the senses adapt, finding new harmony. This resilience is part of the unity, a reminder that perception is not fragile but enduring. The unity of perception also carries a sense of connection, for it ties the self to the world. The body perceives not as a separate observer but as a participant, immersed in light, sound, touch, and rhythm. To see is to be touched by light, to hear is to be moved by vibration, to breathe is to be joined with the air. The senses are not walls but bridges, binding the self with the environment. Unity arises not only within the body but also between the body and the world, reminding us that perception is always shared, never solitary. As the senses quiet for sleep, this unity becomes softer still. The boundaries between sight, sound, touch, and thought blur, and awareness turns inward, flowing into dreams. Yet even there, unity remains, for the mind continues to weave, to create coherence, to tell the story of experience. The senses, though resting, are never silent, for they form the foundation upon which both waking and dreaming are built. To recognize this calm unity is to feel a gentle gratitude for the senses. Each one, in its own way, enriches life, yet none stands alone. Together, they form the continuous flow of perception, the living presence of self in the world. This awareness need not be held tightly. It can rest like a quiet understanding, a soft comfort that all is connected, that nothing is truly separate. As you linger in this thought, you may notice how the senses are already guiding you into stillness. The rhythm of breath marks time. The body settles into support. The mind drifts gently. This is the natural unity of perception at rest, the harmony that carries you into dreams. In this calm, the senses do not demand but soothe, weaving the final chapter of the waking day and opening the door to the silent night. And so, the journey through the senses comes to its close not with an ending, but with a return to presence. The senses remain with you, always, quiet companions in every moment. They are the threads of perception, the story of the self, the gentle guides that carry you from waking into sleep, from day into night, from awareness into dreams. In their unity, there is peace, and in their harmony, there is rest.